Jacked Up Review Show. It's a Jacked Up Review Show. Jacked Up Review Show. It's a Jacked Up Review Show.
Join us as we cover many an insane movie and numerous cult TV phenomenons. Are you ready to get jacked up? Are you with us? Then listen on.
Listener discretion is advised. It's a Jacked Up Review Show. It's a Jacked Up Review Show. Jacked Up Review Show. It's a Jacked Up Review Show. It's a Jacked Up Review Show. Jacked Up Review Show.
Alrighty, ladies and gents, we're here for another special. John and I must pick filmmakers who need to stop making movies. So as a general intro, George Lucas and Roger Corman have retired. Dario Argento has gone dark for the most part. Coppola is now only doing director's cuts. John Lasseter, Bryan Singer, and Brett Ratner will never be allowed near a studio ever again. Roman Polanski and Luc Besson will never work again in the States. John Woo is all talk, but no show nowadays. So who next to tell to get the fuck out? And once again, remember, this is not an excuse for us to be negative. Quite besides the point. Or to be a snobby popularity contest. Only a critique on people who most likely are past their prime and have outstayed their welcome in the film department. So, here on this podcast, we do not shame people or tell them what to believe, only giving a second take on stuff that typically fascinates or annoys filmgoers. So, as a disclaimer, some listeners will inevitably still be butthurt with our picks. We're sorry, not sorry.
Not at all.
Not at all. So, I will let you start.
Well, I'll start off with probably the most controversial pick, Martin Scorsese.
Oh, snap. So, other than absolutely hating The Irishman, we just kind of feel like he's just repeating his formulas, and he's not getting any better with age. Silence wasn't like a rarity of form of return to his like kind of religious prosecution drama. But there's a reason it didn't set the world on fire. It was still kind of one of those, he had already explored that theme in Last Temptation of Christ. So it's like, okay, well. So now he's back to biographies and crime dramas and sometimes both crime biographies. And it's just like, okay, I get that you love the hell out of De Niro and DiCaprio, or DiCaprio as I love to call him. So it's just like, okay. He's not getting any better for me. I think the last one I thoroughly enjoyed was Hugo. The Departed took multiple rewatches because I just prefer the Hong Kong trilogy it's based on, Infernal Affairs, and just for whatever reason, the implausibilities don't work too well in the remake.
We also have Wolf of Wall Street, where he was overly ambitious with that, particularly with his direction and the way he handles characters.
I think that's even more on Terrence Winter, because he definitely has the self-indulgent style that he uses on lesser seasons of The Sopranos, and it's just like, okay, guys, why do we care about these dickheads? And just hearing Jonah Hill just say, you know, oh, I didn't know I wasn't anything like the real guy. I'm like, yeah, because you didn't do any research, dude.
Exactly.
So we've already talked about this guy before. I'm just going to go ahead and talk about Brian De Palma. It's just, he's been on the hurt, and as he already illustrated in his documentary, he's just tired of his studio interference. So it's just like, okay, well, it's not going to get any better. And stop giving us less good for us to remember you by. your legacy is way past its prime, and we like your better movies. And again, as I've said before, it's possible to be a good filmmaker and have more bad than good, but those good movies stand out so much. So it's just like, okay, I'll always remember Casualties of War, Carrie, and Untouchables, and Scarface. It's like Carlito's Way. I don't need any more. Don't need any more. Not at all. Phantom of the Paradise. We talk about that, and it's like, okay, that's remembered for the good or wrong reasons, but it doesn't matter. We don't need any more.
You really don't.
I'll let you talk about Michael Mann.
Oh boy, where do I begin with that? I'll try to be nice here, especially for some of our friends out there. He's one, I think, is a prime example of somebody that focused too much on the digital filmmaking rather than actually telling a story.
He's like a more observant Steven Soderbergh, but he's just getting so excited than the actual audience, and it's just like, I'd like to see that vision you're trying to illustrate. I'm not seeing it on screen. Yeah, you got a lot of actors. Who cares? Their characters are just generic, cops and robbers. And
plus, he also, particularly with Miami Vice and especially Black Hat, he just sucks the life out of his actors, which just ruins any type of character we might care about.
Yeah, he'll bring us. It brings me to our next pick. Just Ridley Scott and him have both just seemingly gotten all these A-listers and given them virtually no roles to do. And, Ridley, I'm sorry, we can debate about his Alien sequels day in and out, but I'll go even further. I mean, just look at no one talks about the non-Gladiator or crime movies that have Russell Crowe. There's a reason. It's like Goodyear is like, it's watchable, but it's a big disappointment because it really is just so average and in its narrative, and it makes you long for just a bigger depth. And it seems like he's been doing some music videos and documentary shorts, and it's like, that's not what we want to see you do. But All the Money in the World, that was definitely a waste of time. It's just like all those reshoots later, and I'm just like, this told me absolutely nothing new about the whole just affair with crimes, and even people who gave it good reviews still thought it just was kind of middling at times.
It's the same way as The Counselor, because that's
yeah. And everyone says, they say give it another chance. I'm like, the extended cut still doesn't tell me why I should care about these guys, and they don't feel like real people. They just feel like a bunch of leftovers from Tarantino and definitely Michael Mann. And he's so in love with Fassbender, and I'm just like, okay, well, Fassbender is often the second or fifth build for a reason. He can only play certain kind of egocentric or over-the-top kind of people, but he's not the lead. And Exodus, Gods and Kings, that was just another example of him just not taking just responsibility. You can turn down work if you want to, You don't have to do this, but just keep going, oh, well, they won't hire it otherwise. It's like, you're Ridley Scott. You can call in some favors and just get management to butt out and cast actual no-name actors to play the actual roles. But, yeah, it's just like, he shouldn't have even got into that when that was like re-upping the whole biblical craze, and it's like, I don't know what sucked more, that or Noah. And it's just like,
oh god,
I'd rather not remember either. But
same here.
Noah was definitely more hard to get through, and we talked enough about Body of Lies, but let's talk about freaking everyone was so obsessed with Matchstick Men and Hannibal for a while, and I just do not find either remarkable at all.
I don't either. I actually revisited Matchstick Men a few months ago, and boy, it's even worse than I remember it being.
And you can watch Thelma and Louise at least once, but it's not one to get excited about. So I think really G.I. Jane and Gladiator were what brought me back into the fold. I can watch Black Hawk Down a few times, but unfortunately the extended cut is the better way to go because you actually get a sense of the character development, because you are totally robbed of that in the theatrical cut. And it's just like, yeah, I want to know about the soldiers. I don't want to know about the battle scenes. That gets repetitive after a while. And
I just still enjoyed the theatrical cut. And that's still probably the last film from him that I guess I quote unquote liked.
oh, you didn't like The Martian?
Oh, well, yeah, besides The Martian.
So yeah,
I
American
forget about that
Gangster,
one.
The Martian, and Kingdom of Heaven, either cut, I don't mind. But Robin Hood with Russell Crowe, I saw twice in the theater because that was back to the escapism that I preferred. And then, but I think the downfall, his real first misfire for me was back in '92. I would have been only 2 years old at the time, but I remember seeing ads, and it was like 1492. I was just like, okay, how do you make a movie about Christopher Columbus? And it was
It's
even,
funny, 'cause I never knew that existed until many years later.
and I think he later did an extended cut to that one as well. And I have tried numerous times because it's just a big cast. Even the Mummy himself is in there. You know, Sigourney Weaver's in there, and it's just like, I have no connection to any of this, and I know that there's some beautiful shots in here, but yeah, then followed by, I'm not sure what fared worse, that or White Squall, because I know White Squall was just very annoying in terms of just showing teenage boys basically, you know, small little boot camp, you know.
I still haven't seen that, so I can't comment.
Yeah, and it's like everyone would talk about, oh, it's underrated, it's got Jeff Bridges. It wasn't as well accepted because it was PG-13. I'm like, no, that has nothing at all to do with any of it. It's just that it wasn't an interesting story. We wanted to find this a fun kind of coming of age, you know, teens growing up, becoming adults, you know, Boy Scouts, and learning a way of life, and mixed with adventure, and it didn't deliver on any of that. And then to follow it up with that, I virtually have, you know, just none of the characters have any depth to them. It's like, okay, you know, you could have covered that up. You could have pulled a Peter Weir, and you could have done just maybe some style, add some style to it, but he didn't even feel compelled to do that. So yeah, The Martian was definitely the last one, which I think everyone can agree on, because it had some humor, and just seeing him be so sour at the awards just made me have some distrust with him again. I'm like, why don't you just be happy that your movie fucking got some awards, dude? It's like, it is a pretty funny movie. You may not have intended it as a comedy, but it's definitely a drama. So, I mean,
Exactly.
it was a very compelling movie. All the actors actually had some characterization written there, and I'm not even sure I would even have given a shit about the book, but it's like, man, why does he feel just compelled to just get all these various scripts that have all these numerous writers and just not concentrate on what's working? And it seems like along the way he just always gets bored or feels like people are crybabies, and it's like, no, we got some legit complaints, and you're getting annoyed addressing it. And if I have to watch multiple director's cuts to appreciate a movie, that's already a bad sign. So it's like, yeah, he and Michael Mann have just definitely just getting grumpy and older, and it's like, I'm done. You boomers. I'll let you go next.
Well, I would have mentioned this one, although I'm pretty sure he might be retired, but I figured I'd go ahead and say it. It's Woody Allen.
Oh, absolutely. Because more or less he's gotten to the point where his lawyers have amusingly done more damage than any good.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, no. And to make it even worse, like, it's getting just very pathetic. It's just like, his only witness is the one kid who he turned in his favor like years ago. I used to buy that bullshit too, is the sad thing. So I kind of am disappointed in myself that I would just cater to such a thing. It's like, and why it took
with the
so
documentary
long.
coming out that really solidified his reputation was that documentary. You know, Allen v. Farrell. And it didn't help that every film he started to do, it started to have the same theme. He didn't try anything different with his films. And it started to show.
He really is starting to show, because, I mean, now, it used to be his actors would really play off each other very well, and then you know, I think you could definitely say it started middling around the 2000s again. He started being in his lesser, more experimental 70s phase again.
With very few times of that working.
Yeah, I finally, it was so funny. Taro hated You Want Me to Tall Dark Stranger so much for our Banderas episode, and I finally saw it a few months back, and I was like, yeah, I'm so glad I didn't watch that one, because it was definitely a waste of Antonio, and everybody else just really didn't connect or intersect all that well. Like,
That's what I've heard.
and it was just like, I really don't know what it was about, and it could have at least done what some of his earlier ones, like Manhattan and Purple Rose of Cairo, did, where there's at least kind of a fairy tale kind of element to it, so you can just at least suspend belief and just let the movie do the talking. It didn't even do that. I was like, I don't know where to concentrate my attention to. Who is the main character to follow around, you know? And if it's an anthology or multi-character drama, it could at least have a little more tighter editing, so I could have some breathing space in between, get ready for the next subplot.
It did help that he kept repeating, you know, certain things from not only Crimes and Misdemeanors, but also even Manhattan Murder Mystery at one point.
Yeah.
Which just bothered me so much, particularly with one that gets praised, which I won't mention right now. But
So I guess much like Polanski, I mean, I haven't seen Polanski's newer movies. I have heard they're actually pretty good, but that's going to be another time for another episode / another day. And I'm going to need some serious breathing room, and I'm going to have to find a site to stream that on, because I'm not paying anything for it. But at the same time, like to say, it's like these guys they really have gotten sour, and you've seen some people just based on nostalgia kind of try and defend, oh, they're still relevant. Like, no, they really aren't. They're much like Argento. As they've gotten older, they become less wise and made more bizarre decisions that are just appalling to most audiences. And that leads me to my next pick, Robert Zemeckis. And it's like, yeah. He stopped kind of doing as many movies for a while and just producing with Joel Silver, but I was just getting very heavily annoyed with how he just wanted to embrace every kind of 3D animation, and I was just like, but you're redoing everything that's been done before, so why is this a thing?
In particular, the Polar Express, that's one that always annoyed me, even as a kid.
Same thing, like my mother and sister bothered with it, and they were just like, this isn't a very organized movie at all. We want to like it because of the cast of all. I mean, Aerosmith's even in it, but it's like, yeah, no. I mean,
I forgot about that.
I know he did read another version of the, Christmas Carol with.
Oh yeah, I did see that either.
Oh God.
That was a school field trip, so don't blame me there.
Flight was very good, but it was gonna work anyway. Just the cast, the predicament about, did this, plane captain deliberately or unintentionally crash a plane? Is he a bad person for it? And it was just really an eye opener and just perfect discussion. I thought about it just literally months after having just seen it once, and it's like, that's a good movie. But then you see The Walk, and I'm like, yeah.
Oh,
that was a captivating story that we heard talked about for months and in various articles, and you just had a very ho-hum movie with an entirely wasted cast and just no eye-popping stunts or anything. It's like, don't call it A Walk, call it The Bore.
Although it started his downfall with What Lies Beneath. That's the one I always point to. Just had to see his faults, particularly with the ending of that one.
It's like he was coasting around. He was already a legend just based on, used cars and Back to the Future trilogy alone. But it's like, after that, it's like, good luck, finding.
And Roger Rabbit.
Oh, well, yeah, so there you go. Yeah, so 5 movies to lean on, and then after that, it's like, Spielberg really was doing all the legwork for him. It seemed, just providing him with the resources, and he might as well have been just, after Forrest Gump, you could just call him the puppet. It just,
Pretty much.
And I hate to call anyone that, but it's like, yeah, I'm not seeing any. He's really is outdated. It's like he was trying to be like John Lasseter, whereas like to him, what interests him are beautiful people and beautiful graphics. And it's like, but that's not storytelling.
It's not.
Oh, so let's go on to Rennie Harlan.
I hate to say it, but it's true. Somebody who's a big fan of his from his early films up until At the Deep Blue Sea.
I know he started it off with a bunch of shorts and this one movie called Born American, but what really got me off to a bad start was seeing Prison and Nightmare 4, and I was just like, okay, whatever.
Which I actually like those two.
Jeez. I try to like it. Die Hard 2 before Part 5 was easily the weaker one of the whole thing, and I know that's controversial nowadays. Everyone's like, oh, I think it's better than the first. I'm like, no, it's really...
No, it's not better.
I have to look up the villains' names. That's not a good sign. And the police superiors are just way more annoying that go around. They you really want them to all die, while, Agent Johnson, I could at least see why he's a dickhead before he gets killed by his own incompetence. And it's like, but that's fun, just seeing the downfall of an incompetent, authority figure. That there's a lot of fun to that, as well as seeing bystanders like Ellis get in the way. And it's like all the other guys who get in the way just really do just take out the enjoyment. Or you see all the traitorous stuff kind of coming miles away, and it's like, really, without the Valverde connection, I really don't find any interest. So then we get followed by Ford Fairlane.
Oh, God.
And I have tried multiple times to watch that one, and I know others swear by that one too. And I'm just like,
that one I just don't get.
I can understand Marlboro Man. I can't understand it.
Yeah.
So it takes me to the next one. I mean, I know many will swear by Cliffhanger and Long Kiss. That's fine, but
Same here.
But don't defend Cutthroat Island, please.
I've tried. Well, I don't know how I can say this.
It was on UPN a lot for me.
I like the score of that movie.
I think it was based on Paul Doris, right?
Yeah.
So there you go. But
That's
yeah,
the two things I like: Gina Davis and the score. That's about it.
Frank Langella looks like he just walked off the set of Masters of the Universe.
Yeah, he does.
And you look at all the other actors, and they're totally wasted. Like, probably were wasted for real. But it's like, Pirates should be fun, and yeah. Aside from Sharks, Driven is another one where it's like, it almost makes me wish that could have canceled out Fast and Furious, because it's like, see guys, car racing isn't entertaining.
Yeah. Well, I have not seen that, to be fair. I only know about that one from a lot of people.
That was also coming on UPN quite a lot, and of course his version of the Exorcist prequel is awful, but
Ooh.
you just can't fix. So I guess his last decent movie for me was Cleaner, but that was just a generic CSI type movie that just had good acting by, the cast members, Ed Harris and Louise Guzman and Sam Jackson. And
But I'd still say Mindhunters is probably his last decent movie. I still appreciate that, even with the flawed twist. I admit.
Yeah, the plot twists are bad. The Covenant is way worse, though. I remember everyone just looking at that.
Oh, yeah. I've heard about that one.
It's like it was another Lost Boys, I guess Hocus Pocus kind of just knockoff. It's just like,
I guess so.
they're all getting supernatural warlock powers, and it's like, yeah, is this trying to... This is worse than Twilight. This says a lot. And then 12 rounds, less said the better, but like 5 Days of War is like, he was so clueless about what propaganda he's spreading about the war in Georgia and Russia, and just having Val Kilmer come back and just looking just so overweight was also just the first clue that this was going to be some absolute horse shit. So then he wasted some time for a while being the USA Network guy for a while, Burn Notice, Graceland, and Skip Trace and Legend of Hercules. I can't decide which is worse, but those are the last two movies I have ever seen by him, and definitely ever will. I might watch The Misfits if it's on TV, but given what I've seen so far, it's another waste of time for Pierce Brosnan. So
Yeah, it's a shame. Somebody who, well, I still defend his older films, but not the newer ones. I just can't.
Yeah,
It's
the new is just so bad. It just makes me forget about whatever is good. The ones that are good, I don't swear by, but I know many will say are best of the '90s. I'm just like, I don't know. I think all the other guys did so many other hit movies throughout the '90s. I would never put them at the top, but whatever. So I'll let you go next.
well, going to the opposite of a director I've never liked. So here we go, folks. Here's my opinion. The one who should retire is Terrence Malick.
Sorry, Sagan.
Terrence Malick. That's the one.
Oh yeah, Terrence Malick. So there you go.
Yeah, that's the one. I've always found his stuff to be very pretentious. And
Yeah, we can't say enough horror stories about the Tree of Life. Fuck that movie. To the grave.
and the whole story of him cutting out Adrian Brody as the lead. The red line.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
How do you cut Mickey Rourke out of your movie? What are you thinking?
yeah, I don't get that. Or the New World, which I'm still baffled.
And Badlands and Days of Heaven I have tried to watch multiple times. Badlands faring way better just because, you had Sissy Spacek and you had, Martin Sheen as a serial killer / fugitive.
Mhm.
But yeah, Days of Heaven I tried multiple times. I'm like, yes, it's beautiful, but the story is so not there. I find all these villagers to be one and the same. That's not a good thing. You got to have at least 3 characters stand out and let the rest just kind of go with the flow. But when you got just everyone just kind of telling just such a just obvious story, this is a short story that you read in a school, high school class. This isn't.
And that's what a lot of his films feel like, honestly.
Are not worth 3 hours. And then I think I saw a more recent war movie he did and co-produced, and it was like. It was so funny. My dad had actually been suggested it at work, and he's like, "Is it worth my time?" I'm like, "No, you're not going to learn anything you have not already seen in a war movie." And everyone loves to make the arguments. Every story's been done. It's how you tell it. I'm like, well, that's just it. That's the way it's told. Is one and the same for me. If how you tell it does make up for the familiarity, and if all I remember is, hey, that's a good-looking shot, but I can't tell you any of the characters. Their agenda. It's like, no. The last good war movies I've seen have been The Outpost, and for Holocaust dramas, The Son of Saul was a very harrowing viewpoint. Just choosing to show it for the person's point of view, like literally walking around. It was like, that was good enough for me. I felt like I was seeing his friends get toasted in the oven. It's like, that's terrible to see, but it perfectly captures just that shitty environment they were in. And it just seems like everybody just seems like all you can do now with a war movie is either tell a lesser known story or try some other technical visual way to showcase it. But it's like that wasn't there in that one. That one was just, let me show elongated views of various mountains, war-torn areas, people climbing out of their huts. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
I don't want to see that. So, Paul Thomas Anderson, and I know I am going to get some serious shit for this, but fuck that guy. He has been just so arrogant in every interview. He's just more unlikable than Tarantino. And in all fairness, I get that Tarantino has plenty of movies in him and is going to keep doing, for whatever reason, alternate history, reality. But it's like, Paul Thomas, I do not get. I have never gotten. I have been occasionally entertained by parts of Magnolia and Boogie Nights, but then after a while, I just thought about him and I was just like, yeah, no, I don't gel with any of this. I think everyone is just so blown away by him capturing the 70s look and being related to someone who was like a voiceover artist in the 70s. It's like, okay, so he was privileged and people feel something in his movies. And I can understand Daniel Day-Lewis being great in There Will Be Blood, but to me, that's just another Shining knockoff, because especially with the score, I'm like, I'd rather watch The Shining. Yeah, The Master and... what was the other one he did?
I think it was Inherent Vice.
Oh yeah, yeah. Inherent Vice was another one, and some people thought, oh, there's no comparison to Big Lebowski. I'm like, well, it's just as unorganized. And that brings me to the next one, the Coen Brothers.
I was just about to mention them, actually.
Well, yeah, I can get behind Unbroken, and I saw so many people saying that's not their best movie. I'm like, oh, why? Because they didn't direct? Yeah, no, that was a good movie, but I definitely can't defend Buster Scruggs and all these other ones. It's like, I'll go to Fargo, I'll go to No Country for Old Men, and Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? That's it. The rest are just very stupid attempts at slapstick humor, the efforts that they do with Sam Raimi, their other friends, and George Clooney, and I'm like, yeah, no thank you.
Definitely no thank you.
Burn after reading, like, the plot twist to that was just absolutely just bananas bad. Like, that's just one too many jokes told and interconnected together. And then just saying, oh, by the way, it's just one of many people we're spying on. It doesn't matter. I'm like, that is a cop-out. But because everyone... And their remake of The Lady Killers really annoyed me, too. Because it's like, everyone was just so obsessed with seeing how they were going to recreate it. Tom Hanks is playing Alec Guinness's schemer, scheming thief who's like the face of the thieves. And I'm just like, yeah, no. There's so many other people they could have hired to be in that dark comedy. And then what really annoyed me was, what was the one they did? Inside Llewyn Davis. I'm like, yeah, no. There's so many other tragic jazz musician stories you could have talked about using New Orleans scenery and just showing how he was basically a fuck up from the get-go was also a cop-out. They should have at least just embraced the tragedy throughout the movie, I think, would have been a better way to put it, instead of just coasting around and then just ending. It's like, yeah, no. You get no brownie points from me, buddy. And just such an over-reliance and just all these Southern characters. And everyone's like, oh, they get accents right. I'm like, it's pretty over-exaggerated still.
Yeah, it is.
I've never seen anyone talk like that in any Southern place I've visited. So.
Nope. I'm from the South, so I can say that right now.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, because we all say that, don't we?
Mm-hmm. I definitely even prefer the TV version of Fargo over the movie version. It's like, if it didn't have that wonderful cast and that Tarantino vibe, it wouldn't have worked. And so let's go to the next one. David Dick Tao. I can understand for Nolan Ray and Jim Wynorski, but it's like, fucking hell. David Dick Tao just sucks. Like, I've not liked anything he's done once Charles Band let him go from Full Moon. He just is so just keen on just wasting everyone's time and making some money. And he contradicts himself so clearly in interviews. Like, he says he had his own company called Rapid Heart Pictures, and he would say, I make movies for, same-sex people. I'm like, no, you make movies for just a gay audience in general, because that's who you are. And then he did, and I try and make appease the women as well. I'm like, women want more than just shirtless guys, dude. Just saying.
True.
And those 1313 movies, oh my god. If you could rate anything a negative 100 out of 10, those would be the ones. He is worse than U-Ball, and we'll get to that dickhead in just a minute. But it's just like...
Oh, yeah.
The thing with David is he just keeps going. He just... quantity over quality. And it's like, at least... have some kind of funny theme going, have some humor, have some camp, like the other people we mentioned here. Olin's lazy, but again, he'll have some, satire in there, and it's like, I guess as clever as he got was in A Talking Cat, which has also been rediscovered as a terrible movie, is that he has a lot of colorful language and curse words in Spanish written throughout what's basically a G-rated, PG-rated movie, and it's like, what? So
what?
you don't even know your audience.
Really don't. Wow.
It's like he's just making boring kids movies, and it's like, I think he need either, and he's occasionally tried to work again with like Full Moon, and it's just been even worse. It's like he had like 2 of those Puppet Master movies, and that was it. And it's like, yeah, no, he's got nothing else to share in his mind. And that's the other problematic part is he is a supposedly smart guy. He's a total film buff and everything. He appears on trailers from hell on occasion with Joe Dante, and it's like, I'm sorry, dude. You might be the nicest guy ever, but yeah, don't ever go near a movie again.
I can mention mine, which,
Please.
oh god, especially after suffering through some of these films that this guy has made, particularly the one this year, I gotta say, is George Garow.
I don't know him.
He was the writer on Midnight Run, Bad Boys. He also directed Double Take, Trapped in Paradise.
Oh, yeah.
Recently, he did the Poison Rose with Morgan Freeman, John Travolta.
Oh, that was bad. Yes.
And then recently was Vanquish, Morgan Freeman and Ruby Rose.
So you feel like he's another one that he was in the right place at the right time and then just kept getting worse from that point on.
Particularly in Vanquish. Like, when you see that,
It's got a 2 out of 10.
You are baffled that this is not a first-time filmmaker, the way he shoots that film.
Apparently, I've seen more than I even realize I've seen by him.
I just remember sitting there like, I cannot believe this is somebody who's actually directed certain films before.
Yeah, Poison Rose, I thought I was going to like, because just looking at the cast and everything.
Same here.
By the co-director of Beyond the Edge, which was a very cool Russian heist movie equivalent of Now You See Me in Ocean's 11 with Antonio Banderas. Yeah, Poison Rose was just atrocious. And I mean that in the nicest way, because, I mean, it was watchable, but it just was very muted. Just storytelling-wise, trying to be a fun, old-school detective mystery, and it just did nothing. But, yeah, Bigger was bad, because it was just talking about this guy getting into bodybuilding and being mocked for being a Jew, and it was already bad enough that they hired the lifeless guy, Taylor Hoechlin, from Supergirl, who plays Superman. I was like, yeah, everything I've seen him in, he is not. He has literally no presence at all. Really trying to be nice, but yeah. Then Columbus Circle, I forgot I saw that. That was just another whodunit with a big all-star cast and foul-mouthed dialogue, trying to be all clever, like Scream and all the other Tarantino kind of movies, and it was just you're not going to remember any of the plot twists, but they definitely don't add up. Middlemen, I remember seeing trailers for that, and I think I just had to fast forward through it. My mom's new boyfriend, also known as like Anything for Her or something like that. My Spy as well, not to be confused with the other one. It went for so many different names, and it just had generic, just ho-hum, dating comedy jokes. And he sure likes to waste a lot of actors in his movies.
Oh, definitely.
So I guess had he not lucked out earlier, no one would have ever remembered him. I especially recall Double Take being average, but Trapped in Paradise was okay in a shitty kind of way. 29th Street was a decent. Just what would you do if you won the lottery? And it's just like, yeah, well, it's something to think about. But yeah, it's just like, hang it up now, please.
But he's still going. He still has 12 upcoming projects.
I'm curious to actually see the comeback trail, because I've always heard about that unreleased movie and all-star cast.
It looks so bad, the trailer.
I didn't know, but so there you go. He does sure like to waste Morgan Freeman and Antonio Banderas.
He must be friends with Morgan Freeman or something, I'm not sure.
Yeah, he's got De Niro, so there's a Midnight Run continuation, but I guess, yeah, you can check it off. So tell me about U-Ball. Why do people act like he's bad just because of video game movies, and we've actually been unfortunate to actually see his non-video game related stuff and just say, yeah, he's a product of his own imagination. He thinks he's bigger than he is, and he acts like he's a victim of the industry, and it's just like, no, you're contributing to just horseshit.
And the thing is, he always says, especially with the video game films, that, I am accurate to the video game, but you're not. you prove that every time you make one, and that's just baffling. You don't listen to the fans, which you should.
The writer,
Even if
one of the writers attached to Alone in the Dark mentioned he was very impossible to talk with over the phone and said he wanted to make it look like Blade. He's like, is that because you're getting confused? Is it because Stephen Dorff is also in this awful movie? I
remember one of the writers, I think it was the writer of American Psycho, she wrote a draft of Blood Rain. She mentioned how she gave him the first draft, and he literally just took that, it went into production, didn't even bother with a second draft or final one.
He never even went to film school, and so many people who were just either, I don't want to call them just Nazis, but just dickheads who just thought, they like saying, oh, he's still better than Michael Bay. I'm like, no, he's not.
No, he's not.
Michael Bay did go to film school, and he even beat another guy who we're going to get crossed off on our list. And it's just like, he roasts him, Spielberg, and I forgot who the third, Tarantino. It was just so funny. Spielberg never even read this story. Michael Bay was like, hey, you shouldn't call people retarded. For a guy who makes so many non-politically correct movies. And then Tarantino was like, kick that motherfucker's ass. It was so funny. Saying who made mature responses. And who just decided to be just as bad. So, yeah.
Sadly, still more mature than Bo, though. Just challenging people to a fight. That's just ridiculous.
It really was. And it's like, he's not a boxer, but he's acting like he is. And it's like, he's punching mannequins at people, and then he tells fuck you to his fans. And I think that was what broke the ice. That was what broke.
Yeah.
It was just like, okay, so all your idiots who like direct-to-video bottom-of-the-barrel movies who've been supporting you because they want something different is like, so now you really don't have an eye. You never had one, but now anyone who did remain, who was obsessed with bad movies and would collect them, especially Blood Rain of all things. And I would see people defend that one too. They're like, oh, Ben Kingsley was kind of hammy. I'm like, not even a chance. He doesn't even look like he's there. Michael Madsen's hair was cool. No, it wasn't. No. Someone got naked. No, that's not enough. It's not even well shot. I can't see anything in the dark. But yeah, it's like he wants to be admired so much. I'm like, I don't even consider him a filmmaker because like the way he shoots his movies is even more puzzling. Like I would see pixels in some of his other movies, especially.
I did too.
It's like, so this was not even color resolved. I mean, shame on Sci-Fi Channel for even airing some of his dreck. It's like, there's got to be some standards, guys. I mean, there's movies that we do typically maybe give a 1 or to a 4 out of 10, but there's at least a reason to watch it on TV. Is like, there's no, even Dungeon Siege was like the final nail in the coffin for me, because he just made so many other unrelated sequels to it with Dominic Purcell and Dolph Lundgren, and I was like, oh no.
Unfortunately.
So just, what is it? I think the thing is he comes off as so nice to all these B and C listers, so that's why Edward Furlong and Michael Parry were talking about him. Like, yeah, but those guys are nutcases to begin with, so fuck them. It's like, Perry, you're a good actor, but let's just remember Streets of Fire. Let's not remember anything else to do after that, please. But yeah, It was just like, he keeps going. Well, no, he's not even going anymore, thankfully. But yeah, like the best part of Postal was he actually dies in it. And I'm like, yeah, perfect. He doesn't even realize what a great relief and joke that is. But so tell me about Judd Apatow and Paul Feig.
Oh, God. Here we go.
Tell us how you really feel. All right.
I'll finally say my opinion on this. So, I know anybody who's out there who does love Apatow and Feig.
Yeah, they have. Like,
I apologize,
3 hits, but that's it. Like,
yeah,
I can name one good title I like, but they have more misses than hits, guys, and that does say a lot about being in the right place at the right time.
But to me, and this is just how I feel, I've said this for many years now, I think Apatow is what kind of ruined certain comedies now, with the way they just use improv rather than actually having a script. And
especially when you look at 80s movies that did improvise, like Beverly Hills Cop and Caddyshack, I'm like, yeah, but there was still some kind of structure. There was a schedule at the end of the day, and
even Ghostbusters, they improvise, but it
yeah.
worked within the context of the scene rather than just them just improvising.
Mm-hmm.
That's what made it work so well. Whereas nowadays, it's just improvise just because we don't have a script. Just go.
He was the
Just go.
best comedians, and you see all these comedians. They're like, I was in that movie. I'm like, yeah, everyone saw it, but you should not list that at the top of your resume. That movie is awful.
No.
And Apatow loves to just. You see him trying to do stand up. He's not very good at it.
I didn't even bother, so I'm lucky there.
He just showed up on the Comedy Store documentary, and I was like, yeah, he's not. I don't think he's a dumb man, but he's really got no story to tell. And when you make a book and it's just about famous people who you've taken, selfies with, I'm like, that's not a storytelling.
No.
So his modus operandi is basically hiring random circus act performers, other improv comedians, adult performers, and it's just like, okay, so you cast basically everybody in LA, and he keeps being cited as launching the movie careers of Jim Carrey, Will Ferrell, Amy Schumer, all these other people, and I'm like, they've done so much more before and after that.
Exactly.
I don't think you launched Jack Black's career. You used him, that is for sure, but those movies worked just because there was a lot of talent to spare, and they were low budget, and people had creativity working aplenty. And Paul Feig is definitely a hack. I will say that much, because who the hell remembers Freaks and Geeks? This is just another.
I never knew that existed until like years ago.
I knew about it just because Mystery Science Theater people were involved with it, but it's hardly what I would call the best show of all time that everyone must see. And it was just. But after that, let's. A Simple Favor and I Am David. Like, I Am David is supposed to be a guy, finding out about his Judaism roots, and it's just so uninvolving. It's just a total waste of Jim Caviezel, and it's a total flop, and everyone acts like, oh, he understands drama. I'm like, no, look at that movie. He does not understand drama.
And then you got ones like The Heat and his Ghostbusters reboot, which, for the love of God.
And let's stop talking about Spy Guys. It wasn't that funny, especially when it started out as a serious movie. Like, I don't remember any of the characters in it. Everyone just freaked the hell out just because they remembered Allison Janney and Jason Statham being in the trailer. And I was just like, but they're very small parts of the whole movie.
And Allison Statham's the best part of that movie, if you ask me.
They may be, but these same people who complain about a lack of content love to give them a freebie just because it's a comedy. I'm like, a comedy should still be organized. There's nothing in that movie you can take serious at all. And it just outstays its welcome really fast. Like, all the betrayals and everything, it just gets very tiresome. And it's one of those. It was one of those that really did leave a shitty taste in my mouth when I was just watching it, because I was like, I'm not gonna want to rewatch this ever. Like, it's just. There might be some amusement here and there, but it really doesn't leave a lasting impression, which is what I want in a comedy.
Which is most of his films, actually.
Or a movie that's just ballsy and just kind of just keeps going, just having a lot of other stuff and other layers. And it's like, a movie can be just too full of itself, but I'll give it a chance if it's at least trying to do something different. And this one was just like, they just were too in love with themselves that really it's hardly what you would call a perfect spy action comedy. Like, I can think of The Spy Who Dumped Me and even Kingsman and Red. Those were fun, and that one was just trashy. Even the cast members they just feel the need to just curse every single minute. I'm like, it's not funny when you repeat multiple times. It just shows you how much just goes into it. And I know he's like obsessed with cursing. He says in all these, various interviews, and much like Apatow, he is not much of an actor, so I do not know whose brain he picked at the time to get him into the industry. But whatever.
Well, speaking of comedy, I can bring this one up since we brought those two up. I can say Adam McKay is another one. That
I dig Adam, but if you're only watching his I almost said Adam Sandler. If you're only watching his Will Ferrell stuff, yeah, you're gonna be disappointed.
It's
Not a fan of Vice or Big Short.
Vice. I thought could have been better. The Big Short is actually the one film from his that I actually thought he put some effort in compared to his films before.
He should be a bigger guy, but like you say, he kind of took his time just because he was just writing for SNL and Conan, and
doing all those films like Talladega Nights and Anchorman and
Anchorman was
those.
definitely the powerhouse behind it, and I hated how Apatow was promoting that. I'm like, you didn't do anything except, provide a budget. It was just Mckay and Farrell's thing. The only misfire for me I've had from him has definitely been Hustlers. I think that movie is even worse than Showgirls. It's just so damn just generic, and I hate reusing that word, but like I got nothing out of that to where I was like, please, if this is this supposed to be a documentary, because this just feels like a very unorganized mashup, and it's apparently based on a true story, but still, it just got so taxing, no pun, to where I was just like, okay. Like the only moment I laughed was like near the end where they start playing Whitney Houston's, I want somebody to dance with. I was like, okay, that's kind of funny, but I really find I've gotten no insight into the sex worker industry. I just know that these guys are trashy and proud of it. And it's like, okay. I think everyone was just exploding because they didn't understand the amount of cast members that were associated with it. I'm like, I don't find that interesting at all, actually. I think that's more of a turnoff because it's like, yeah, and then what? But yeah, it's kept going and going and going. And so tell us about Josh Whedon, how he's kind of a screenplay fixer with a big head.
Oh man, where do I begin?
I love Speed.
This was somebody that I did adore for years, and particularly not only with him, the Speed, of course, and as somebody who's a fan of Buffy and even parts of Angel and of course, Firefly and Serenity. Then after he did like Avengers, then you started to see the signs with him. Well, his ego got too big, and
he seemed similar to Matthew Weiner, I don't know how you say it, but he started out as one of the writers of Sopranos and then creator of Mad Men. And it seems like everyone said, had shitty things to say about his movies, which well deserved, pretty uninvolving. But then it's just like the Romanovs bombs. It's not one of Amazon Prime's better shows, and it's like, but then we hear what a dick he is, and how he would rewrite stuff and get all the credit. I'm like, it seemed like Whedon would do that too, where he's just like, yeah, I'm the main showrunner, so therefore it is all out of my head. It's just like, no. Who was the main writer of Angel? Oh, guess what? It was Sean Ryan, the future creator of the Shield and the Unit. So, fuck you. But yeah, I mean, Angel, I definitely thought dated way better. It just was way more goofier and bizarre, and it's like Buffy just went for so many shift tones after a while and network changes, and it's like, okay. But you look at the original pilot of that, it is not clever at all, but this is like, I guess
yeah,
he's
can't defend that too much.
it seemed like he got so bitter after a while, just after working on Alien 4 and X-Men and even Waterworld of all things, and it's like, you're working on all these movies and you just seem to just think that everyone owes you something. I don't think that's how this game is played, buddy. But
no.
Yeah, after Avengers 2, I was just like, I don't want to watch anything else by him again. But then it seems like now, after a while, he was just, again, after the Justice League fiasco and being fired from the Nevers, I don't think he will anytime soon. I think he's just gonna start doing independent stuff. It seems like his brothers are nice. Zach's done some interesting indies, and there's another guy. It's not Josh, it's like James Whedon or something like that. But yeah,
I think so.
I hear he's okay, so it's like, yeah, I'll rewatch Titan AE, but don't for anyone think for a second that it's brilliant. It's just Don Bluth's attempt at doing a Star Wars movie.
And done well, I'll say. But...
And I tried rewatching Firefly a few different times. It doesn't hold up to me as much, but the Serenity movie is definitely very well done. It's just like,
oh, it is
so epic, and emotional, and that says a lot, especially when that was actually my introduction to that. I had only seen parts of a few
Same.
episodes, and it's like, well, there was some emotion that worked. So let's go on to another visionary who he definitely pretends to be the next edition of, but isn't. But said mentor is also outdated. Let's talk about Whedon's icon that is James Cameron.
Oh man, and this hurts to talk about because
Oh yeah, he's
I've
definitely
said
great.
I've said before, Aliens is my favorite movie. I've said that many times.
Yeah, the first
And-
Terminator I can quote all day. I think it's better than even T2, which is great, but come on. T1.
And like I love The Abyss and True Lies, and then
Yeah, and then
Once
working on,
once after that you get to Titanic, which, to be fair, I don't hate Titanic. Just to
even
mention.
some of his Roger Corman stuff that he earlier did, like knowing that he did the designs on Android makes so much sense when you watch it, because it does kind of have that cerebral kind of feel that
Mhm.
his other cyberpunk influence kind of movies have. And again, working on his cat, he's credited as just a producer, but when you find out he's like a co-editor and co-writer on the likes of Point Break and Strange Days, makes those movies even more awesome, because they do have a similar kind of atmosphere building,
Mhm.
tension, and it complements the rest of the thing and just shows how he really is an excellent filmmaker who understands every part of it. And yet he's just been so obsessed with creating this world for years, and he finally got a shot at it. And I think because he just made a rare everyone's so obsessed with what money filmmakers make. It's like, I don't care that he outgrossed T2 with Titanic and then outgrossed Titanic with Avatar. I mean,
Let's talk about that. Avatar. That's one that was so much hype, including me, because it was the first movie of his I got to see in the theater. And then you watch it, and you're like, this is just him ripping off other films that you've seen before, but done worse. And then, ever since then, he just focused so much on Avatar, he's never bothered with any other project. Like, if anybody didn't know, he's supposed to do Alita Battle Angel at one point.
yeah, I think he would definitely
And-
would have made a bigger impression on it. But my problem with that is it really didn't do anything new with the genre, but yet the designs were kind of what stood out about that movie and the cast and all. So it's like, I think Rodriguez is just so busy copying James. I'm like, no, James should just tell the story. He's the one familiar with it.
And I'm somebody who likes Alita, but I would have preferred James Cameron doing it. But since, like I said, he's focused so much on the Avatar 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever he's trying to do at this point.
And then he does the whole, I should have bought Jurassic Park. I'm like, it basically already was Aliens. I mean, he had Stan Winston. We don't need you, James. Spielberg understood about the characters. Had James done it, he would have probably given them some shitty dialogue to say, and it's like,
Probably.
the kids would have just been victims in a slasher, because again, he came from Roger Corman school. It's like, yeah, no, it wouldn't have worked it well. I mean, say what you will about John Connor's the most interesting character played by inconsistent people. But
True. Yeah, that's one that still hurts me. Is that's somebody that was great, and now he's just shown how much of an ego he's had over the years.
yeah, especially when you hear how like Ed Harris will never work with anyone like that again, and Sigourney Weaver hated to work with him the entirety of the filming, and then applauded him when she got an Oscar. And it's like, yeah, well, still, you gotta like who you work with, and it can't be someone who's just not a people person. You gotta be able to handle everything, both the talent and the special effects people. And it seems like he's just a more arrogant George Lucas.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah, because George was just too content with just doing special editions of everything, and it's like, I still want a Willow sequel. I don't want all this other stuff. But yeah, it's like James, it's like teased True Lies 2 and then just forgot about it. It's like, no.
And by the way, James, give me my Blu-ray of True Lies in the Abyss. I'm still waiting.
Yeah, at this point, I'm gonna get that Spanish Blu-ray of it. That'll send a message, hopefully. So let's talk about Wes Anderson. And
Oh,
What a stuck-up prick he
Oh.
can be. Especially when I heard how there were a few articles that talked about how he begged someone to make like Bottle Rocket win first place in a film festival, and that's kind of what started it all. It's like he got a bigger head than Richard Linklater. Linklater, I find plenty of just relevance in. The Before Sunrise trilogy is brilliant, and School of Rock is a very easygoing crowd pleaser, and Slacker was very eye-opening. On the indie film scene, he was tied with Kevin Smith, Jim Jarmusch, Spike Lee, and even Tarantino for just reinventing the indie film scene. So it's like Boyhood was like one of the few movies everyone liked, and it's like, well, what the hell, Wes? Because like Bottle Rocket, there's really not much substance to that, and much like the Coen Brothers, I would watch his movies, and I would notice everyone who liked them weren't too very good at describing him. It's like, you guys are just way too in love with film. So after Rushmore, everything else is a blur. Like Life Aquatic, we've talked numerous times about, is like without William Dafoe, like the movie just does not work.
It's like the one I could somewhat stand is Moonrise Kingdom, but even that has issues.
Everyone was like so impressed. They're like, I haven't seen Ed Norton and Bruce Willis in a movie in a while. I'm like, watch Mutterless Brooklyn. They're both great in that one. This one, I mean, what was it? Boy Scouts going around finding magical stuff. It's like, yeah, no. That's schlocky. That's a stupid kids movie that a lot of adults are just wigging out about.
And then
Limited was like the first flop he made, and I definitely never bothered with that one much. I was just like, yeah, I definitely don't want to see that one.
Well, I'll bring up the one that I actually walked out on. This is telling when I say I walked out on this. It's Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Oh, yeah. I do not like how he's becoming the new animated guy now. But yeah.
I was baffled seeing that. I think I saw the first 20 minutes in the theater and then walked out.
Yeah, Anderson, I can understand why he has an ensemble because he does actually make good use of them. It's just a matter of I don't like the stories and how everyone
That's the problem.
talks like a kid copying Tarantino, and it's like with Wes, and it's just like Scorsese acts like he's this next of kin. I'm like, no, Scorsese knows how to actually cover stuff and use a kick-ass Rolling Stones or Doors soundtrack, and you use just like whatever record comes your way, and you just got very just gonzo storyline, just where it's just like Royals and Dumb Bums, the ending totally wrecks any positives that come before that, but it's already a pretty unpleasant dysfunctional family movie, and when you hear about the making of it, it's like, that's kind of why it's not that great. It's not terribly funny, and everyone's just so distracted by the cast, and it's like most of the time he will not make good use of his cast members. He really won't, and I am just continually baffled by so many people who complain about so many other movies, and it's like, yeah, well, that movie didn't provide any nourishment.
No, usually they don't, especially the ones nowadays. Especially the other animated film he did, which was I Are Dogs, which I know has gotten some praise from certain people, but that didn't really give it anything regarding any characters or any emotion to it, and that's why that one flopped.
Isle of Dogs was pretty bad, and I remember everyone freaking out because they were just cartoon shenanigan, addicts, and Bryan Cranston, Ken Watanabe are in it. I'm like, don't care. And I fortunately saw like the last 20 minutes of it, and my mom and sister were depressed at it, and I'm like, why would you have even bothered with it? It's a Wes Anderson movie. He sucks.
I tried giving it a chance, but yeah, I zoned out.
I can't wait to design the promotion cover for this and just see how many people get ticked off. I'm not going to listen, God damn it. I'm like, all right, you already weren't going to listen to it anyway.
Exactly.
So let's talk about Roland Emmerich. How fucked up that guy is.
So, well, I'll say I'm kind of like the defender of like his first big three. Yeah.
Yeah, so we got Universal Soldier and Independence Day, but
and I say Stargate, and I like Godzilla, his Godzilla movie.
'98 Godzilla is definitely a so bad it's good one, but just seeing how clueless he is about the whole, how inept the plot is, just pisses me off on repeat viewings some days. I got to be in a trashy movie mood when I watch it, because otherwise I just can't get through it all the way.
It probably doesn't help that I'm not big on Godzilla, so that probably helps with me.
It definitely helps, but that's what sucks too, is like Godzilla fans are snobs about it, but then when he just acts, when I see him talking about the making of White House Down and The Patriot, and how he finds both of them to be such important movies. Like White House Down, he says, I was trying to make such a realistic movie. I'm like,
no,
what are you talking about? And then The Patriot, he's like, it's the most important movie I've ever made. I'm like, maybe on paper. And I have family who grew up loving that movie, and on the second or third rewatch, I think I saw it and I was just like, this is such a Hollywood plot, this should have totally worked. And you can tell he's just really modified it. It was by the writers Saving Private Ryan, so there's some material there, but it's like, yeah, there's some pretty glaring inaccuracies, and then just all the British just all being just ruthless. I'm like, it's just so one-sided, but then it gets to where it's like, it's just a Mel Gibson movie. It's just an excuse. It's like Riggs and the British colonial war. I'm like, okay, my wife, my family, Braveheart 2.
Although I prefer this over Braveheart, to be honest, but that's just
it's a good comparison, because it's like Braveheart is also even far more inaccurate, and yet it has not done too well on repeat viewings for me either. So maybe it is just a Mel Gibson past his prime thing. I don't know. It's like more care and yet more inaccuracies happened with Braveheart, and yet Patriot was definitely a shorter movie, so a bigger
that's
cast.
probably what helps me a lot.
Yeah, I guess. And God, I just take away Heath Ledger in the action, there's nothing to that fucking movie. But yeah, I used to be able to watch Stargate movie, and I was just kind of reserved, just like, I see why people like this. I don't like it like the show. But then I resaw it this last year, and I'm like, oh yeah, without James Spader, I got nothing. Kurt Russell is so bored in that movie. And I know others who swear by it, and other Stargate fans who aren't big on it, and others who just love the whole thing. And I'm like, just give me all free shows. Forget that movie. But yeah, Independence Day, I can only watch the Will Smith clips. I can't watch the rest of it because it's just too damn long nowadays. It was so much fun growing up because it made sense why Will Smith instantly got onto Men in Black. But it's just like him doing that sequel, and then even trying to recreate Stargate, because he like hasn't even seen the show, but he just thinks his movie is like a masterpiece. And so that's kind of what's just really rubbed me the wrong way, just seeing how he's just such a clueless guy. And just the nail in the coffin for me was that stonewalled biopic. It was like, yeah, well, trying to make a very important LGBTQ history movie, and yet you literally told nothing. You just had guys running around, and just the whole thing felt very disjointed and disconnected.
Well, it's sad because, like I said, I used to somewhat like him, especially like I said, all these stuff, and then
they hate
once it gets to Day of Tomorrow, that's when they all went to hell.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
and there's virtually no characterization at all in that damn movie. It's like there's okay effects, but not really worth watching or anything that leaves an impression. You remember all the disaster scenes in other movies of the 90s and even the 70s, but it's like, yeah, I don't remember any of the ice storm effects in Day After Tomorrow. And I remember the wolves chasing them in one scene, and that was ridiculous. I remember it even opens up ridiculous how Dennis Quaid is hanging off against a very obvious green screen. And I could tell. I just rented it on DVD after it just come out. It took me.
I saw it in the theater, so imagine my pain now, even as a kid.
Yeah, you could tell.
But then you have like 2012, which that one really that pushed me over the edge, particularly with Oliver Platt's character.
Yep, 2012 was awful. It just was. I knew from the get-go, just seeing those fake-looking effects, and John Cusack just looking in awe, just like, yeah. And Danny Glover playing an obvious Obama representation. He's not very good at he's not as witty as he thinks he is, especially with the whole Mayor Ebert. It's just like
Yeah, that's the one thing I don't like.
Roger Ebert's
I don't know.
even a good sport, but it's not going to change what anyone thinks about your shitty movies, dude. And it amazes me to this day that so many people who hate Michael Bay and all these other filmmakers love Roland. And I'm like, just because of Independence Day alone, I'm like, yeah, no, it's not enough. And again, there's people who just defend Universal Soldier. I'm like, it took me a few years to really come around to that one because I just, the story wasn't there, but it was interesting. Collage of just blending Vietnam soldiers with all the producers of Terminator 2 trying to capitalize in on that two mega stars facing off each other on the big screen formula. But it's like Dolph Lundgren really carries that movie, and then Vic Armstrong doing the action scenes helped them using the Borg replicas from Star Trek Next Generation.
But then you have like White House Down, which admittedly when I saw that in the theater, just to point out, I did like it when I saw it in the theater, and then before we did our first podcast, I rewatched it, and boy, did that not age well with me. In particular, with James Woods' character.
He's a sore thumb, just playing himself.
And yeah, it's like certain characterization of not only him but his wife, which really ticked me off watching that.
The kid was not bad, but Joey King's just a good actress to begin with. But like, there's like a dead hour of space of 20 minutes. It's like just drags, and it's just like I'm expecting 21 Jump Street. Oh, but it's not a deliberate comedy, and it's just Jamie Foxx wearing tennis shoes and faking his death. It's like, yeah, worst president ever.
And also, I normally don't like to point this out, but I see what y'all did there. You ripped off Last Boy Scout with them driving into the pool. Sorry,
I
guys.
didn't think of that, but that's totally it. But yeah, that's what instantly made me give that like a negative like 200 out of 10 stars. I was like, how do you have the whole Joint Chiefs firing on the White House? It's just like, yeah, no, you've lost any kind of believability, and the way that whole thing is animated is also very bad, and it's just like, oh my god, but you're just so clueless as to how just inept all these characters are, and you just think it's all creative because they're working against each other. But yeah, I can honestly say Dean Devlin seems to be a smart guy because he's just gone on to produce so many TV shows and other stuff. But it's just like,
which even Geostorm, which he directed,
oh yeah,
I find more fun than some of Emmerich's latest work, honestly.
Even the Triangle miniseries was a very worthwhile Sci-Fi Channel event. But yeah, it's just like Devlin at most times was even just an actor and co-writer in his films, and it's like somehow Roland was just, I don't know if it was a language barrier or what, but he just kept going and going and going, and it was just like, please just stop already.
Although admittedly, I'll admit this right now, I'm kind of curious about his next one with Halle Berry. I say kind of. I didn't say I'm very curious.
It's just another disaster movie, which we'll definitely see somewhere along the way, but I don't think we'll like. But I hope she's good. I hope she's good in it. I hope she's good. But
I'm sure she will be.
Yeah, no, I mean, you take away any of his movies after all, they're not going to hold up on rewatches. That's my main key factor that I have an issue with. This is like such good actors giving either forced performances or being the only saving grace of some of these movies. What really gets me is he will play all this patriotic music in just very piss poor, just slow motion, and that's just what drives me up the wall. It's like, stop.
Y'all complain about Bay with that. At least Bay, he knows what he is for most part as a director compared to
even
Emmerich.
his cinematographer who worked on his first few movies said we have to have it be all this larger than life and exaggerated because it just plays for that kind of spectacle. It's like, yeah, I mean, let's got the Criterion release. Come on. A lot of people really like his movies. I mean, Armageddon is basically his Rocky, and it's like, but what is it? Independence Day is just kind of appeals to a 50s sci-fi mentality, but don't get me wrong, like, it does not make sense at all from any kind of standpoint, and you just need that. You need some kind of just way to shut our minds off but he thinks he's making a work of art that everyone likes, and it's like, you have no sense of tone or mood, dude. Let's go on to Lars von Trier.
Oh God! How do I begin with that?
Dogma 95 style. It all started downhill from Antichrist. I tried getting into Breaking the Waves, and I was like, yeah, I've seen some good Dogma 95 movies, like A War and everything, but I can't defend this dude. And that's before you even get to all his outrageous comments that he makes. And it's like, come on. The guy produces very trashy snuff films and even porn.
That's really what I call it every time.
But no, he's done actual shit like that. That he's just
I know.
Yeah, but yeah, this is like, I mean, Melancholia, that was a total waste of time. It's like, so they're all killing each other off an asteroid before it hits. It's like, for real? Come on. And everyone just seems so drawn because he would get the likes of William Dafoe and John Hurt and Nicole Kidman in his movies. But yeah, Dogville, that was a waste of time. That was like one of the ones I saw later on. It's like, and he acts like, oh, I was interfered with. I'm like, it's not like you had anything you were going to tell. It's just Valhalla Uprising, that was atrocious. I was just like, why is the shrill music playing for what feels like 20 minutes? It's just... I can understand people who like Nicholas Winding Refn. You know, there's people...
I don't, but that's just me.
They want to defend Drive and Only God Forgives. We're not going to agree on Only God Forgives. Let's just say that. But it's like...
Well, I won't agree on Drive, but that's another day.
So there you go. It's just like... I can understand people liking Drive. I cannot understand all this other horse shit. And people acting like he's such a visionary. It's like, so what did he do? I mean, they're just imitating David Lynch. Here's the thing. David Lynch does actually play in all this catastrophe and just manipulating what the viewer sees versus what we think we see. And, you know, come on. He created Lost Highway and Twin Peaks. Your argument is invalid. Lynch is very relevant. You don't have to like Mulholland Drive, but you're gonna like most of his stuff. The Elephant Man is still a very emotional movie.
It is.
Years later. Potatoes. They used to make fun of that all the time. Mystery Science Theater. Speaking of which, let's talk about Graydon Clark.
Am I familiar with that director? I'm not sure.
Final Justice. You can IMDb him real fast, but he's just another driving schlockmeister and makes movies with his kids. And he's another one who just seems very oblivious to just how he's just so proud of being an independent filmmaker when he just has nothing to say at all.
That filmmaker. Okay.
He's done movies for kids that don't feel like kids' movies. He's done movies that he's trying to make terrifying that aren't terrifying just because of budget restrictions. He keeps casting Jodan Baker and all these other out of work, you know, people like George Kennedy. So past that, let's go to, who did I put down? Darren Aronofsky.
Oh, thank God.
I know many people love him, but fuck. Requiem for a Dream, I think, is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. And it all started with Pi. Pi was one of those where it was like, and much like the equation itself, it never stops. It's all 3.14, 14. And I mean, Noah sucked ass. When you make riff tracks worst of the year list, and the New York Post, Kyle Smith says it's the best comedy of the year, you know you fucked up.
It's not just that. I mean, it's Black Swan.
And Black Swan, he ripped off an anime, and people were still like, it's an original vision. I'm like, no, it is not. And Natalie Portman's been in so much better stuff, and I don't buy into anything. Just everything he sells to me is just false. He tries to make it bigger than life, imitate Hitchcock, and definitely every other Giallo film. And I'm just like...
And even Cronenberg with The Fly with Black Swan. That's what it felt like.
He totally ripped off Cronenberg. And it's like, I haven't liked everything Cronenberg's done, but he's very relevant. He's a smart filmmaker from Canada who went from being a B-movie guy to just a psychological horror mystery guy, and even a drama guy in some cases. You know,
Mm-hmm.
The Fly and History of Violence definitely have merit.
Unlike a lot of Aronofsky stuff, which just unwatchable garbage. Sorry, folks, I have to say that. I I have tried to get into his stuff for years. In particular, The Fountain was one that
Ooh,
I tried,
and that was
and
like the
that's
first one his fans didn't agree on. And I'm like, well, yeah, because there's definitely nothing to tell there. He tried lowering it down to PG-13. Hugh Jackman doesn't resonate at all in that movie. He just overacts the whole time. He's still in Wolverine mode.
it's baffling. It almost had Brad Pitt and Kate Blanchett involved with that at one point, and then that didn't happen because of Brad Pitt doing Troy, which honestly, thank God he did Troy over that.
Even more so, I mean, Darren Aronofsky, people are going to say, how dare you compare him to this other guy? He reminds me of Charlie Singh. For those who don't know, he did the oh so dreamy shit fest that were, just that were The Cell and Immortals.
Yeah.
To name a few. And you look at the David Fincher produced The Fall, an even more empty version of The Fountain. And it's just like, what the fuck? So it was in this guy's mind. It's just been watching 2001: A Space Odyssey one too many times, but Kubrick had some merit. And I have plenty. We all have plenty of movies by Kubrick we don't like, but it's like, come on, Kubrick reinvented kind of movies, and some of them just haven't dated well. But it's like, yeah, no, Tarlum, what are you going for, buddy? So that brings us.
I tried to watch some of his stuff.
I really thought I would like The Cell, but I
thought what too. My brother likes it, but I'm like, well, good for you. I just can't. I've tried. I mean, if I can mute it, that's great. Just to watch the visuals and that's it.
He understands the visuals, but it's just so overlong. It works for a music video. It doesn't work for a movie. And even then, as a music video, it wouldn't really leave too much of an impression. It would just have like a WTF moment for 5 seconds and then go on to the next. So let's go on to another music video guy, Zack Snyder.
Oh, yeah.
Unless he does more zombie movies, I don't give two shits what he does next. I like the final cut of Justice League. I said it. But this whole fiasco didn't have to get to that point. And, again, for years, I've just struggled to like a lot of his stuff. I still, you and I still can't stand Watchmen, and 300 hasn't aged on certain days too well. And
besides Drum Butler, of course, but
there you go. Yeah, the lines and some of the fights, but still just way too overlong. I prefer Sin City when I'm talking Frank Miller. And we already know Frank Miller's pretty pretentious and can't direct because we saw The Spirit. So
true.
So this takes me back to even just Sucker Punch. I knew he was a very clueless man when he was like, I'm trying to make a superhero movie, and he just said all this other stuff, and he's like, you don't understand what feminism is and all this other shit.
No,
and
you don't.
Don't get me wrong. There are many bullies on the internet trying to pick a fight with him, and fuck those guys. I'm not down with neo-Nazis and all the other snobs who just act like, everyone should just retire and everything. It's like, well, it's their business, so all you can do is just try and make them push them in a better way, or just not go and see their movie and give them that's all you can do. Don't see a movie and then wait for it to die on cable, or see the movie and bitch, but don't act like someone is beyond just repair. But he is a little bit beyond repair, and I hate to say that after him encountering the tragedies in his life, but at the same time, he does kind of just need to reel it back in. I think he should just keep making movies for Netflix from this point on. Stay away from superhero adaptationville.
I do think somebody needs to rein him in, especially when regards to runtime and...
For all the complaints about Army of the Dead, he at least did less over-the-top visuals with his villains, yelling.
True.
He had less slow motion, and Dawn of the Dead will still be his best one. But see, again, that's over 20 years now, so it's like, okay.
That's true, although that Army mostly suffered for me with the writing and all, but...
I think so, too. He might need he's doing some of the writing, so it's like he might need someone to actually just fact check.
Either fact check or just let somebody else write the script.
And
I'd
by fact
say.
check, I don't mean, do a biography. I mean, just actually say, does
Yeah.
this movie work? Can we actually make it inexpensive? And if he's going to be his own cinematographer, he can definitely shoot his own movies, so now he's just got to make every shot count.
And maybe get a new editor, I would say. That's what I'd say, for the most part. Trying to think of. I mean, we could say Tarantino.
I was going to put him down, but yeah. He's lost the indie vibe with me from his earlier work, and it just doesn't show in his overlong fiascos nowadays. And
like after the Kill Bill films, it started to really go downhill.
even in Kill Bill, it's just like, it didn't have to be that long. It's just like, when you're just...
Kill Bill 2 especially.
Yeah. It's like, it even makes me wait. Like, Kill Bill 1 also annoys me because it's like, I wish Lucy Liu was in the rest of the second part. And I get that it's all spliced up and that there's a ultimate cut, but come on, guys. Most of us didn't have the opportunity to see his full version. So, I do feel like he's just pretty much here to just vent, and everyone just wants to go to his movies to be pissed off. It's like, fuck that. I go to the movies to talk, be energized, be blown away, and I don't go to just be very heavily irritated by just people being just idiots. And takes me onwards to Andrzej Bartosiak. Again, just he's done so many bad video game movies, and I don't like any of the DMX, Joel Silver, Steven Seagal, Jet Li trilogy. It's just martial arts and kung fu. It just is very taxing to me for the most part, and I just don't understand how he was a cinematographer, because a lot of the movies he's lit and photographed, I don't think are the best photographed. I can understand Speed and Falling Down, but then I look at, like, I think he did Devil's Advocate or one of them, but then he did freaking some of Sidney Lumet's movies, and that's what got him on the map. And it's like, I don't think those movies are particularly well shot. They're great movies, but well lit, I'm going to have to disagree. I'm looking at a perfect HD master of it, so it's just... seeing his last few where he's now keen on producing a lot of these movies with Mark Dacascos and Alex Nevsky that are just direct-to-video garbage, it's like, no thank you, dude.
I'm somebody that kind of defends his earlier work, although I admit they're not great films, but I say they're more fun than anything else, but they're not...
I can understand Cradle to the Grave. It's almost there, but yeah, Romeo Must Die is like some of the worst CGI I've ever seen, and it just pisses me off because it's like, why didn't they just let Jet Li fight with wires or something?
Apparently they did for, I don't know, Romeo Must Die, and that's why they kissed the dragon, just to get away from the wires, which I think was all better for it, honestly.
Doom took a few rewatches to like. It has the one-liners and the clever Matt Callahan script, but that first half is just so wasted. And I don't know if it's just like a language barrier or if he's just not too familiar. But yeah, you watch the new Street Fighter Legend of Chun-Li and Maximum Impact. He apparently did that other Scott Adkins movie, Dead Reckoning, which was like in the can for like 2 years, which was already a bad sign.
That's true.
And those have a very well-deserved 2 to 3 out of 10. And aside from that, he's just done music videos and produced other stuff. I know he was like the cinematographer for like Joel Schumacher and Richard Donner for a while. It's like, I guess Lethal Weapon 4 is well photographed and U.S. Marshals is, but I don't know about Species and all these other movies. It's whatever.
Yeah.
Makes you even wonder if he's the proper cinematographer, if he's just got it good, because most of the time you're telling all the other guys, hey, like this, do this. I don't get it. But I do remember an interview he did years ago with Exit Wounds and how he just was talking about some ironies. It's like, so all it is Steven Seagal getting fired. Why is that funny? Other than it being Steven Seagal. Oblivious. I know others like to say that's his last good movie. It's like, I never thought so. Sorry.
I'd say last decent, I'd say. But
DMX was interesting, but DMX was so much better than most of his movies. Like, I just kept going back to Belly and Never Die Alone. Longest time, I actually thought he was a kung fu artist. Apparently not really.
Nope, he was not.
But Toziak keeps getting work, but he's basically now just bottom of the barrel direct-to-video. Feel free to mention a few more, but yeah, I think we roasted enough bitches tonight.
Well, this is just for me, but I'd say Ernie Barbush was one. I've always felt a very below average director. Who's made like 2 films I don't mind, Six Bullets and Falcon Rising, but then you get to ones like Assassination Games and Abduction with Scott Adkins.
Cube Zero was a pretty bad movie, and I know he already rewrote Cube 2, and he got some acclaim from working on developing American Psycho, but yeah, it's like, he's got all these family movies. Ticking Clock and Hardwired were okay. They Wait was awful. Stir of Echoes 2, I guess, was okay, but it was still related name only, and then it's like he produced all these other just kid movies that were just like, okay.
Yeah. But all I can mention.
But yeah, they look at the rest of his stuff, and it's just like, yeah, pretty trashy.
Very much so.
What was the other one he did? He did like some Isai Morales movie. Falcon Rising was a letdown as a Michael J. White movie, but yeah, Pound of Flesh was Van Damme was awful. Yeah, Casa Vida was decent, but it wasn't a memorable family movie. And so, The Saint, enough said about that awful rehash. That was back in 2017. He did that. I'm not talking about the Film Noise movie.
Well, no.
And
well, I'm not even a fan of that one, but that's a different story.
Oh, there you go. Okay, but Abduction, not to be confused with the Taylor Lot movie, was a very lazy Filipino Roger Corman, Scott Adkins production. And so, yeah, all he's doing now is just very generic. I just don't get it.
I never did. And no, I think that's it for me. For all the directors. No, that's it.
Oh, Adrian Lyne. Fuck that guy.
Oh,
Everyone
yeah.
loves talking about Jacob's Ladder. I'm like, no.
I do too.
It's not enough. It's not enough. He's
like, I love Jacob's Ladder, but that's the only film of his. Like, he got lucky there, and that's it. Honestly.
Who was the writer of that? Somebody who wrote it.
I think it was
Bruce Robin, who did Ghost, Deep Impact, and Time Traveler's Wife. So there you go. He had an idea of how to do very emotional, supernatural kind of movies. So it's like, just, it was in the scripting and the cast, I think, because Flashdance, I think, is good, but it's very uninspired in between transitions.
Then you get Fatal Attraction, which I find to be vastly overrated.
Followed by Unfaithful, his Lolita remake, Indecent Proposal, 9.5 Weeks. Yeah, no. It all started with Foxes, with Jodie Foster being preyed on by a bunch of manipulative men. I was like, yeah, no. No. He just always came off as just one of those just pretentious people. And he apparently wrote this awful movie that Alex Pettyfer starred and directed in. It was just like pretty much just another just outlandish escapade, and it's just like, this guy must have never met any actual people. But yeah, I always heard from years ago, it was like people talking about Indecent Proposal, and it's like I saw it again like 5 years ago, and I was just like, this is basically a Skinamax movie, but even you hate it even more because it's like, where did the budget go? Why are all these actors trying to act like it's something more than it is? It's like, no, this is so unrealistic. And I know critics hated it, but everyone likes to pretend like it's better than it is. It's like, it's so cliche. It might have had Red Shoe Diaries or Daniel Still written all over it. It's just really shitty. It's got another one coming out probably next year. And I'm just like,
Yeah, January of next year.
Tracy Lads. I'm like, no.
And I'm like, Ben, you can do better. I know you can.
I hope. That's right.
I forgot about him. Good thing you mentioned him.
Oh, I'll say it. I would be without remorse if I did not mention him. Kevin Smith.
You know what? I was thinking of saying that. I think
I don't want to be
agree.
mean to him. I haven't hated some of his movies as much as others, but
Well, I have the later stuff, but
well, that's just it. And some of it, Mallrats never held up for me. I know others swear by that. They're like, it's his best one. I'm like, yeah.
no, not
I would never know it was by him if it was, but like Clerks 2, I guess, kind of really diffused his fan base because it was just like all everyone remembered was the Star Wars versus Lord of the Rings argument, and that was it. I don't remember anything about it, and I've seen it twice. And well, hell, that reminds me. Everyone started talking about the special features more than the movie, and how there's him and Robert Rodriguez playing video games while they're cooking. And I'll definitely say that. Robert Rodriguez, please stop. Just hang it up. I get that you're making another Machete, but
not recently, because I know he's doing that Ben Affleck movie this fall. So,
oh, jeez.
which I am curious about. Hopefully, that can be something. Hopefully, that's what I'm saying.
At the end of the day, it seems like he's had an identity crisis because he was doing homages to begin with, so that's just all he knows how to do. And I guess because he's been so fed up with all the professionals, he's made some valid points and been an inspiration to all us indie filmmakers. But then, I mean, all the Machete stuff has really kind of made him a little irrelevant after a while. Where it's like, and now he's closing down his cable channel, El Rey, and it's just like, well, that was already kind of in an identity crisis because it never had a consistent schedule. And now, From Dusk Till Dawn show was pretty bad. I will say that.
I never got a chance to watch it, so.
And he's had some underrated stuff in terms of, like, everyone forgets that he scored Kill Bill Part 2 and, for just $1, and even doing basically being the stand-in director for the scenes where Tarantino is on screen. So it's like, and I think the scene where Maya overdoses. So it's like, yeah, he was definitely a team player. Stuff that you never knew for years until years later, and it's like, why didn't you put that on your resume? I was inspired by him for a while because, like George Lucas, he was all for this whole non-union thing, but I do recall hearing stories from people who had worked on some of his stuff in Austin and how they literally didn't get paid and they were just working overtime. It's just like till the morning hours. It's like, yeah, I couldn't do something like that at all. Gets away with it because he's also the cinematographer and composer on his movies. So
True. Well, like I said, I'm willing to give him just one more chance on that one movie, but if that's the last straw for me, and that's about it. Because I've suffered through a lot of stuff over the years, particularly Once Upon a Time in Mexico.
Mm-hmm. And
Which I know
then Shark
people
Boy
swear
Love
by.
Novel, Spy Kids 3 and 4, and it's like, then he kind of just got sequelized after a while. And Road Racers I find a lot of fun with. I know you like talking about The Faculty. I just felt like after a while he just kind of he was imitating too many other formulas and just never becoming himself after a while, because And that says a lot, because he wasn't interfered with by Dimension Films or Weinstein. And so it's like, you got no excuse.
True. Although, except for what it was, that's why I enjoy The Faculty. Just because, he did that formula, but I thought he did it well for the most part. And I wish he could go back to his style of Desperado, but I know he's not going to because of the digital filmmaking. And that's just one big problem he's always going to have, at least to me. But now, Kevin Smith, I've said many times, particularly when you get to, what's it called, Tusk? That was the...
Yeah, there was Tusk, and then there was like a few others he did with Johnny Depp's daughter, and it just was really atrocious.
Oh, God, Yoga Hosers. That, if you want to talk about some of the worst films you've ever seen, that's up there with me. That was pure torture the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to be forgiving because, he seems like a nice guy and all, but oh my God. Just the comedy there is all childish, immature, which I know his earlier stuff was, but there's at least some sort of cleverness to it back then. Now it's like he just gave up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think you should retire. And just do your podcast, because that's what you like doing. Just do that. Just saying. I mean, just filmmaking is not for you anymore. And it's coming from somebody who loved Clerks, Chasing Amy, Dogma, even Jane Silent Strike Back. So, and yes, those are my 4 favorites. There you go.
There you go. And I mean, it was cool enough that he did a Clerks TV shows. And it's like, man.
Yeah. And funny enough, he was in, speaking of Ben Affleck, in the Daredevil movie in a cameo, which I always found funny, even years later. And
he was funny in Die Hard 4. He was funny appearing in some other movies, but yeah, Cop Out.
Oh, God. And I actually defended that movie the first time I saw it. But then after that,
just swore by it too. They were like, "It's the last good movie Bruce Willis made." I'm like, no, not even. He wasn't all that much into Die Hard and their stuff, which was already sacrilege. So it's like, oh my God, cousin, what are you thinking? Cop Out is just that. Cop Out of a movie.
And yet, you know what the original title for that was?
Bullshit. I don't know.
It was A Couple of Dicks. That's what the title was.
That's just...
I'm like, really? You really thought that was going to go through? I'm sorry. And yeah, there's just certain filmmakers that you loved and they've shown their age, as we said before. And sometimes you just have to retire. There's no fault in that. Just go ahead and live your life. That's all we say. And like I said, that's my whole list. I'm glad I got to do this because I've been wanting to say this for years, but never got a chance. So thank you for giving me that chance here.
Anytime. And with further ado, I think the stink burgers have really done their damage. So let's go home and watch some movies we do like.
Exactly.
We'll return after these messages.
Hey, feeling down? Feeling low? Not enough podcasts about movies in your life? Why not try
They must be destroyed on sight.
the new Podcast Cure-All? Sure to get you right with the world and on a path to better living. We have exploitation, we have Italian horror, we have zombies, we have slashers, we have crime films, we have spaghetti westerns, we even have sci-fi and sex comedies. So take a dose of
They must be destroyed on sight.
as needed and let the hosts, Lee Russell, Daniel Harper, Paul Romali, and the odd guest host cure what ails you.
Warning, may cause atrophy, African consumption, black fever, bone shave, chin cough, colic, cramp colic, dropsy of the brain, elephantitis, grocer's itch, jaundice, mania, miasma, mortification, palsy, Pott's disease, rheumatism, scurvy, St. Anthony's fire, summer complaint, and worm fit in some people. Consult a physician before listening.
Hey, I heard you like movies.
I heard you like to hustle.
I heard you like podcasts.
Well, guess what?
There's a podcast for you out there called The Home Video Hustle.
Damn right.
Every Friday, we talk about whatever movie PJ picks out the bag. What does that mean? Every Wednesday on our YouTube page, I put a bunch of movies in a bag, and PJ picks one out at random. And then we just watch it. We talk about it for maybe like an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever we feel like doing, wherever the conversation leads us.
But do we actually talk about the movie?
Most of the time. Tangents galore.
Yes.
So believe me, we may be a movie podcast, but it's not always about movies. We might talk about video games, music. Yeah, that's the big one, music. Sometimes we might get a little bit of politicalness in there.
Yes.
Sometimes we may just, we know what we like to do. We like to tell stories, PJ.
Yes.
I am the master storyteller of the podcast realm. Undefeated. So if you like to hear about movies, video games, whatever foolishness comes to our mind, the most random stuff you could think of, check out the Home Video Hustle. You can find us on the Stitchers, the Google Play, Apple Podcasts,
What else?
Podbean,
What else?
Podcast Addict,
Goddamn.
all that. Ain't no reason you can't get your hustle on. We everywhere, worldwide, baby.
Hustle, motherfucking hustle.
Hey, we can't cuss in the promo, PJ. We gotta be family friendly. There may be podcasts out there that don't want his hair to say all that good fun stuff.
Well, you.
Don't run the listeners away, PJ.
I'm sorry.
But this is going kind of long.
Yes.
So we'll end this and say, hey, check out the Home Video Hustle every Friday on all the various podcast outlets. Peace.
Peace.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster. And while Witch didn't make it to the top of the world, he did make the Gangs of Hollywood podcast. So join the gang and enjoy a movie review podcast about movie gangs, gangsters, mobsters, and the mayhem they cause. You can find GOH Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at GOH Pod at www.gohpod.com, as well as your favorite podcast listening app. And remember, say hello to your little friend for me.
If you take two old punk rockers who are past their prime, put them in front of a movie screen, and give them a podcast, what do you get? Cinema Punks. Cinepunks. It's the mixtape of movies.
Did you ever see a film at such a young age it left you traumatized with cinematic wounds? Necrophilia. It's a dead issue, man. Don't push it. Cinema Psyops is a weekly podcast documenting an ongoing experiment on the mind of an unwilling test subject.
No one should have to watch this movie.
Oh, no one should have to watch this?
No one should have to watch this movie.
Surprisingly, it's not a topic that a lot of people really want to tackle.
I'm shocked, prudes.
I know, really.
Right?
It's the next sexual frontier that no one wants to explore.
I am, in the most sincerest of senses, disappointed in you.
It takes a powerful goddess like Connie, jam her arm down the monster's throat and kill it. Oh, I'm still tripping out over that. Even as a kid, I was like, I gotta find a girl like that. Every week, I get a new look of disappointment that I never thought I could get out of it.
Unimaginable. At 12 years old, you should not be watching this movie.
Obviously.
At 13, you should not be. 14, you shouldn't be. I'm not entirely sure even 17-year-olds should be watching this.
Just because you're offended by something doesn't mean that you have the right to demand that it doesn't exist. Watching this film again, I had all of this like little nerd glee with everything that kept
little
popping
history
up.
doll popping up
absolutely.
at you.
So I totally loved this film.
Hey, I know why you couldn't see that. It's because your brain's warped from watching this shit at 12 years old.
Yeah, this is a rough movie. I told you ahead of time when we were getting ready to do it that it was going to be a rough
How did you watch
one.
this shit at 12?
Because physical wounds heal, cinematic ones don't. Listen to Cinema Psyops.
Hey everybody, I'm Corey.
And I'm Zach, and we're the hosts of Podcasting After Dark, a cast dedicated to late-night horror and sci-fi of the 80s and 90s, often found on HBO and Cinemax.
You know, the movies your parents didn't want you watching as a kid. You can find us every other week on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and Stitcher.
This is what you want.
This is what you get.
It's time, let's check our cue, baby. Pair it with a couple brews, baby. We love good movies. We love the bad ones too. So we watch them all and pass their lessons on to you. Oh yeah. Everything I learned from movies helps to make life a little bit groovy. With the one last plot holes and gratuitous movies. It's time to get busy with your friend Steve and Izzy at eilfm.podbean.com.
Hi everybody, it's Mac Jackson. I wanted to invite you to a new site called the Forever Adventure Network. This website has everything. Pictures, videos, blogs. There's original music by Harmony Constant. 2 podcasts. One is the MacGyver podcast, where we celebrate Richard Dean Anderson, his iconic roles, and how it's influenced our lives. There's episode discussions, interviews, and life conversations. The second podcast is the Never Gets Old podcast, where we celebrate all the best things that we love in life, from TV, movies, music, and comics. The site is also the home for the MacGyver SG-1 audio series, an ongoing adventure series that continues the adventures of MacGyver and SG-1. There are also multiple stores to choose from for all of your pop culture and adventure needs. Come on by and check us out today. And thanks for joining the adventure.
We now continue with our program.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening.
It's a jacked up review show.